American blacks, and certainly we have white politicians reacting to that. So in the political area, a great deal has happened.
We've come so far that we take as routine, and black people as well take as routine, black mayors, black senators, black members of Congress, black local officials.
Well, I don't know that routine would be the right way to put it. I mean, Harold Washington's election in Chicago, for a lot of reasons, of course, was not routine. The coming election, probable election of a black in Philadelphia the first time. Those are significant new developments, but they're not unprecedented now. There are, I don't know how many black mayors, but they're in major cities, Los Angeles, Chicago, probably Philadelphia, Washington, Detroit,
Atlanta, Newark, New Jersey.
Let me throw in a couple figures there, if I may, that show just how far we have come in the last 15 years or so and how far we have to go. There are now 17 black mayors of cities over 100,000, including 3 or 4 of the nation's largest cities. There are no black governors. There are no black senators. There are 21 black members of the House. That over 5,000 black elected officials that you cited, Herb, that is correct, but it is still only about 1% of all elected public officials in the country. Blacks make up 11 or 12% of the population. We have come a long, long way. There is a black mayor of Birmingham, Alabama, which was probably the site of the worst violence during the civil rights demonstrations.
He was not mayor then. It was a white mayor then.
He was not. And Bull Connor was the police commissioner, the white police commissioner. But we've come a long, long way, but there's still a long way, even politically, for blacks to go.
I suppose, if we're measuring the progress since '63, you ask about schools. It's sort of that, I believe, is a mixed result. Clearly, a lot of school systems have been truly desegregated. On the other hand, if you look into these figures, you'll find out that a lot of them, largely because of housing patterns, are still, if not totally segregated, are largely segregated. And that's where we run into, of course, to this whole perplexing problem of busing. So
I think it's much more than busing, because it is still a national refusal in the North to face up to de facto segregation, as it was called during the days when school desegregation was heatedly debated. I think the most impressive fact there is that the South has become, in the last 20 years, the least segregated region in the country as far as schools are concerned. The least segregated. It was, they thought what was George Wallace, segregation forever? Was that his slogan? Just some figures from a black publication recently. The northeast part of the country is the most segregated in schools. 2/3 of black students, in the Northeast, 1/2 of black students attend schools that are 90 to 100% black. So there has been an abysmal failure in this area of breaking down de facto segregation in the North.
Where the focus now of civil rights leaders is, to not an exclusive extent, but to a large extent, is on what they call equity, largely economic equity, getting a piece of the economic pie, as one of them put it to me recently. And it goes all the way from getting better jobs, getting advancement in jobs, running businesses, getting help from government to run businesses, getting help from banks to run businesses, to build businesses, to be serving in corporate America. That is much of the focus now, and will be of this March, this year.
We still at the bottom of that ladder, however, have black unemployment that is substantially greater than white unemployment. The latest figures show black unemployment at almost 20%.
And the average black teenage unemployment at 50%. And these are not just wild figures pulled out of the air. These are the latest Department of Labor statistics that show black teenage unemployment 50% in the country. And that is a chilling figure,
compared to the national average of 9.5%.
Yes.
Vic, I have a little digression on this whole thing. I think the result, I think that the Brown decision of 54, and of course the March of 63 and all the events in between and since, really go even beyond the question of equality for black Americans. I think that that it really shook up this country in so many areas. I mean, caused such social ferment and probably the most social motion in this country maybe in the history. And it went beyond, as I said, black equality. You know, you could trace in many ways the women's movement now to the activism generated in the civil rights fight. You know, we question now churches and education and family. And I think all of those things, the activism with respect to Vietnam, I think was taken a little bit from the civil rights activism. As a matter of fact, Martin Luther King got into that shortly before he died.
Yes, he did, and that remains a controversy among those who examined King's record in those days. Remember, he became an ardent opponent of American participation in the Vietnam War. Some of his detractors in those days felt that detracted from his whole role in the civil rights movement. There was strong criticism that he never should have turned civil rights into an anti-Vietnam War direction. But looking back now, and we see, I think, some of the long-range perspective that Martin Luther King had. He sensed that the involvement in Vietnam was bad for the country, bad for blacks, and he was right.
And in fact, this year's march is labeled for jobs, peace, and freedom. But it's kind of different this year than it was in 1963. In the couple of minutes that we've got left, how's the feeling different, Herb?
Well, I think in 63, it was clearly a moral question sitting out there for the American people to answer. And the American people looked at those pictures and listened to Martin Luther King and the others and made a quick, easy judgment. Segregation was immoral and wrong. 20 years later, the discrimination in this country is more subtle, more difficult to perceive, certainly more difficult maybe even to solve. And I don't think we have now the fervor that we had in 63. I don't think this march will parallel this, will equal this certainly in the fervor. But it may accomplish certain other goals.
There will be much more emphasis on jobs this time, and quite properly, and on black economic conditions. And I think as you look back over the last 20 years, there have been some very impressive breakthroughs. We have a lot more black lawyers and doctors and judges and government officials. We have over 1 million blacks going to college today. That's all great, but the economic condition of blacks generally, of many blacks at the lower rungs of the economic ladder, is worse today than it was 20 years ago.
I think, if you agree, that we can say this is a better country now than it was 20 years ago, but there's still a lot to be improved on.
And there's been substantial gains, both social and economic, but we still haven't been able to eliminate that hardcore poverty area at the bottom of the economic strata, not just among blacks,
right,
but among other minority groups as well.
And poor whites. Right.
And in this current march, we're liable to see much more participation, you raised this issue, by other minority groups besides blacks who are suffering from the kinds of problems that have been endemic for a considerable period of time. Herb Kaplow and Bob Clark, I want to thank you very much for joining us. I'm Vic Ratner in Washington. Now back to Bob Walker in New York.
And now this.
My name is Joe Logan, and I'm 7 years old. When I grow up, I want to be a teacher because I like my teacher and I want to be like her. To be a teacher, you have to know how to take care of the kids in school. You have to learn a lot to be a teacher.
The kids of today are the scientists, the engineers, the teachers of tomorrow. Only with your help can they be assured of a first-rate college education. Today, colleges are having a hard to high cost of living.
To be a teacher, you have to learn a lot, to teach a lot of kids a lot of things they have to learn a lot about.
Invest in the future of America. Please give to the college of your choice. A public service announcement of the Council for Financial Aid to Education and the Ad Council.
And this is Perspective. Perspective, reports, analysis, and commentary from our correspondents around the world who work where news is happening. Perspective is produced by George T. Phillips, directed by Barbara Silber. Audio engineering by Marty Foldian. Join us again next week for Perspective. For the ABC Information Network, I'm Bob Walker.
94 WKTI, Milwaukee's concert station.
This is Milwaukee's Issues. Milwaukee's Issues is a weekly public affairs presentation of 94 WKTI. We'll be back with our guests right after this.
Did you ever notice that these days life keeps getting more and more impersonal? Yes, Mr. Whitney.
Sally, get me my wife, get me coffee, cancel my lunch, get Mr. Newman on the phone and get in here and take a letter.
Hello, Eagle Airlines.
Yes, I'd like to make a reservation.
Your call is being automatically answered. All operators are busy right now. Your call will be put on hold.
All people with last initials A to S report to room 807 on 11. Have your telephone number, social security number, driver's license number, ID number.
At Planned Parenthood, we do something that's rare these days. We treat people like people. Whatever your family planning needs are, there's a Planned Parenthood office close to you that's there to help. We treat you thoroughly and confidentially. Call the Planned Parenthood office nearest you. We're in the phone book. Because in times like these, it's nice to know that Planned Parenthood treats you like more than just a patient.